Aaron Bielner, and Eric B. And you're listening to the Diary of a Little Man's Podcast. All right, we are back. Another episode of the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast. This time we're going to go a little off topic and talk about, we'll tell you what we'll talk about. Let's go ahead and get this going. I am Eric B.
And I'm Aaron Bielner.
And we are the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast. Aaron, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing on the West Side?
I'm doing well. Crazy week. It's been a crazy week. Had a lot of personal issues. 18-year-old son's graduating from high school, getting that little high school blues, trying to get the last minute things done before graduation. So just a long, crazy week. Last night, we went to go watch Joe Coy over at the Chase Center. And
he was there?
He was there, but the sad part was a lot of people can't get along at a little show like this. And people wanted to fight. I just wanted to listen to the show, but people wanted to fight. It's a small little confined arena, and of course you're gonna hit somebody on the way out. But yeah, it was a crazy weekend, and I'm glad to spend this hour with you, Aaron, to talk about the craziness of life.
Yeah, no kidding. I can join in with you. It's funny how things work when you change the circumstances, what you're doing and why you're having to do it. When you change the circumstances, can change your attitude, can change your experience. So, and not to be elusive, what I mean by that is I've been in a hotel for 3 weeks and I come back to my home on the weekends. And it's for business matters. It's not, but it's not work related, and it's not like a vacation by any means. And so 3 weeks are down. I've got 2 weeks to go. And I've spoken to my sister. She made a joke about it. She's asked me if I was Jack Torrancing, in a great reference to The Shining. The sad truth about that is, and not to expose my sister's trauma or whatever, I think my sister was too young when she saw that film.
Yeah.
And that's probably my fault because she's 6 years younger than me, and I had been curious and saw it, and then I wanted to watch it, and I should have, probably, I think my sister saw parts of that movie which were, a little, yeah, exactly. The old through the fingers. And I remember the twins, of course, and Danny, and
yes.
He would ride his little tricycle around the hotel, the Overlook, the great Overlook, the fictitious Overlook Hotel in some part of Colorado. This just popped into my head, Eric, and I have to share this.
Share it.
We went to a film festival for another film in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And there's a great theater there, I think, called, what are we doing? Yeah, look at you. Did you just put that up?
I can't.
Look at you. Here's the thing about that.
There you go.
There's a theme of that in I'm going to say it's called the Alamo Theater in Austin, Texas. And they have that, what you're showing me right now. The carpeting, it's there, and they've got the big but it's a really big one, oversized tricycle and then people sit on it, of course, and take pictures. And there's the doors, and it gives you that flavor of you're the Danny, in The Shining. And that was a wild film. That was Stephen King, of course. Translation, Stanley Kubrick's translation of a Stephen King film book, and Scatman Crothers was in it. Jack Nicholson, of course. Shelley Duvall. Shelley Duvall. That was an interesting. I actually read about that whole film and all, as an actor, you get intrigued with the behind the scenes stuff, what's going on and what they had to do to build that and make that and the craziness of it. And there's, I think, YouTube footage of Jack Nicholson prepping for certain scenes and getting riled up, and it's pretty interesting, and learning about that, as an actor and anybody who's in that industry. You told me there's a second one. I didn't even know there was.
Yes. And it's funny you mentioned that. You mentioned the second one. It's because I just kept saying, okay, I'm going to watch this movie. I saw the trailers and I didn't watch the movie in the movie theater. I think when this came out, the whole pandemic thing was going on 2019. So a lot of things were shutting down or about to shut down. So I waited till HBO released it on HBO, watched it on HBO. And I knew what I was getting into when it came out, because they did show trailers. When they showed the trailer, they showed the little boy Danny on his tricycle. Of course, I'm not sure if it was a reshoot or if it's actual footage. But when I watched it, I was like this the whole time, just watching the screen, just like mouth down, like, oh my God. And the whole nostalgia factor, without giving spoilers, because I know you haven't seen it, they do go back to the Overlook, but it's kind of a long process before they get back over there, because it's a build up.
Right.
My Google Home, I just triggered my Google Mini, and they're talking about, do you want to know about Dr. Sleep? But yes, it was kind of a crazy movie, and Ian McGregor does a great Danny in the movie.
Okay. As an adult, yeah.
Yes. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to yell at my Google.
No worries. I've done that before with Echo and Alexa, and now that I've mentioned, how that triggered.
Yeah, but
Echo stop, Alexa stop.
Yeah, exactly. So. But yeah, no, it was a great movie. It was a great film, and it went under the radar. You said earlier it got good scores on Rotten Tomatoes. IMDb gave it a 7.3 out of 10, and I think it would have got higher if the people who actually watched The Shining and ended up watching this, because the people who watch this are people like that's our age, a little bit older than us, who understood The Shining. But it makes you wonder about, the Overlook Hotel. I forget the real name of the hotel. But that hotel in Colorado makes me wonder if people actually go there for the nostalgia factor. You would think so. I always wanted to go to that hotel in Colorado, take that nice drive. That drive is an actual drive to get up there and stay in one of the rooms, right? I think the room was 406 or 306. I forget the
yeah, I'd have to go back. I know what you're talking about though. And yeah, exactly. The nostalgia of it, and not to cut you off, but yeah, I agree. Yeah. The fact that first one was released in 1980, and then you're going to do a sequel, which it did well, but it's almost like a reunion film, where if you're going to do a sequel 20 years later or however long, no, it was even more than that. It was more than that. It was almost 30 years in 2019. Yeah. So 29 years later, you're doing the sequel, as life is. Danny's now an adult, dealing with whatever obstacles and challenges he's dealing. Yeah, that's pretty intense.
Yes. And I think the reason why they waited so long is this is a Stephen King novel, but I think Stanley Kubrick did not want to be attached to a second, part two. And it's kind of like, where were you going to go with it? It's like you already killed the main character. Jack Nicholson died in the snow. So where were you going to go with it? So with what they did with Dr. Sleep was the way they did it. Trust me, you will like the show. I probably wouldn't watch it with your kids around, just because I'm probably too young to understand the basis of the story. But it was a good movie to where I ended up watching it like 5 or 6 times just to watch the things that I missed, the first couple of times. But it was a really good movie. But yeah, it makes me wonder, like, who would stay at hotels and be, you have that unfortunate thing of having to be there 5 days a week, right?
Sunday through Friday afternoon, I roll out. I get in Sunday evening, and we get through the week and then roll out on Friday evening. And yeah, it is. We're making the best of it. Yeah. And I keep telling myself, hey, last week I was like, okay, I got 3 weeks, not 3 months. Yeah. And now I'm using the same, formula. Hey, I've got 2 weeks, not 2 months. Yeah. So, and it's not the end of the world. It's not like I'm, in a situation where, I've got to live outside, and eat worms around everything.
Yeah.
So it's not that, the most horrible thing. It's just the timing of it, and when it always works this way in life. And I'm sure, I'm not going, woe is me. I'm sure a lot of people deal with this. It's just how it comes in that time. And you've got, for me as an entertainer, as an actor, and I think a lot of other actors and people in the entertainment industry, you yourself in your industry, it's like, it's either quiet and stale and boring, and then everything at once, and it's like, it'd be great to deal with all these things spread out.
Yes.
And then it's everything at once. So yeah, the hotel thing is very easy. I was just Googling this while you were speaking, and from what if this is true, the hotel that it's based on is the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park. And supposedly Stephen King went to that hotel in 1974 and had a nightmare that inspired him to do The Shining.
Wow.
Which then Kubrick produced. He wrote that book, and then Kubrick produced the film, which then was released in 1980. And the reason I think that's important for now, just to make it personal, is how things work out as far as projects and films. You've heard stories of, like, the movie Inglourious Bastards, and like that it was 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
And things happen. I've got films and projects that, for all intents and purposes, and I've referenced this so many times, and I promise this isn't the only film I've ever done, but like when we did The Little Tin Man, that started as a concept in like 2004, and then it finally made a film in 2012.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, 8 years. And then the things that have been doing since then, I have concepts that I started in like 2012 that are 10 years later now becoming something.
Yeah.
And then I can't release too much information on the one project, but we're kind of doing a spin-off thing that was became, well, for the original writer and director, I don't know when that started for them, but then it was produced and it was filmed in 2018. And so here it is, 2022, and we're making a spinoff concept, And so, and then I didn't even tell you this. This is crazy. Or maybe I did talk about. Did I talk? Did I mention to you what the original concept for the Little Tin Man is not what it is now, or what the finished product is. And now we're taking that original concept and going, hey, let's bring it back to life, and let's go with it and see where we can go. And here it is, 2022. And so now we're taking what the original storyline and ideas were, and now we're going to make that into something. And it's just like, it's nuts. So when you think of The Shining, and like you said, now it's Dr. Sleep in 2019, it's this whole process is so maniacal. And so here I am sitting in a hotel, and I've got 2 more weeks of that, and it is what it is. But in so doing, also, I'm writing and creating. I'm building and going. As a matter of fact, I can mention this. I had told you about, or we've talked about, the Lilliput troupe, the Ovitzes, who were captured, and spent a year in Auschwitz, and all luckily survived. And after the war was over, now that is becoming, or I'm trying to make that concept, not the play, but just the story of the Ovitzes. The woman who played the youngest daughter in the play production, off-Broadway play production we did, she contacted me 2 weeks ago and said, hey, do you want to make this into something? I said, yeah, let's go.
Wow.
So,
okay.
I mean, and it starts now. I mean, just the building and the initial steps. And honestly, it'll be, in all fairness, I've always said to me, I want to be done with that before I turn 50.
Yes.
And so my schedule is working towards that. But I've got, now we're on a timeline. Now let's go and get it. It's what happens in life, and life is what happens while you're making other plans.
Yeah. I mean, we're like right now, 2022, look what's coming out in 2022. We have Top Gun Maverick, 36 years from the original is finally coming out. Avatar 2, is finally coming out. So yeah, these projects, I ever since I've been doing interviews and I've been interviewing actors and actresses, it made me appreciate what actors, writers, directors go through, because I can pitch you a story like, hey, Aaron, let's go do this and let's go do that. You'll be, yeah, let's do it. But to find a production company to say, yes, I'll do this with you. We'll do this. It's not as easy as it sounds. So like a lot of people who we watch movies, I'm a big movie guy. I sit here and I sometimes, trash talk like, why did it take so long? But we don't really understand the back end of it, the finance, the story writing.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, not to cut you off. There's, can I add to that, please? There's so many steps to the process. I think that for the average individual, and I'm not insulting anyone's intelligence, I'm just saying, it took me a while to figure it out myself, and I'm not a genius by any means. What we assume is that you make something, you make something, and then you're going to go sell it.
Yeah.
And in reality, what's really happening subtextually and behind the scenes, you've got to make sure that it's going to have a demand.
Yeah.
Yes, people make things and then they sell them, but that's a huge risk to take. And so you're trying to alleviate some of those risks and go, do we have something people want first?
Yep.
Okay. You can, I think that the misnomer and the mistake that, young, novices or any person coming into it, whatever age novice into this industry, is that you make a product and you shop it, and you do that a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, you do that, absolutely, you do that, but you shop. You set it up so that people are already showing interest before you shop.
Yeah,
and that you're in demand before you take all that time and money. I mean, and to make a great product. And don't get me wrong, some things collapse.
Yeah.
And some things don't sell very well. But there was an interest to begin with. There was a demand there. The people are there. One of the things, and again, I've got to kind of tiptoe around it because I can't mention too much yet. And that's the other thing that's very alarming or very unsettling or just irritating to consumers and to moviegoers, television lovers, is they're like, how come you have to be so secretive? Well, you have to be quiet about certain things because of the rights of who has access to what. You can't release too much because of the fact that if you leak too much, somebody else could grab that and run with it.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't want to say this is a slimy business, but at times it can be very much that, where people go, oh God, let's beat them to the punch. They've released this.
Yeah.
We're going to take it and run with it because it's great. But you're always watching. I sound like I'm one of the Corleones. You're always watching
your back.
With your product and with what you're doing, because if it's really good, people will know it's really good and then go for it and steal it. And the old adage is there's no new or original ideas in Hollywood or in the entertainment world, and that it's just a different perspective of something already done.
Yeah.
And in a way that's very true. But as you're working, like I was talking about here, and I ran on a tangent, I'm sorry. As you're working on something and what we're doing right now, we're getting this team together. We've been making a joke amongst ourselves that we're getting the band back together.
Yes.
And you're building all of that, and you're putting all of these different people in play because of what they can do, who they know, their skill set, what they're worth as far as their talents and resources.
Yeah.
Doing that, knowing that if we put this team together, it's kind of like the dream team, if you will, for the Olympics or whatever. We know that we've got a good shot. We're not 100. We're not saying there's no way we can't fail, because there's always a way that failure can eat you alive. but we're trying to do as much as possible to eliminate those chances.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's this game.
Yeah.
That's this game.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. I mean, I sat down with a comedian. I don't want to say his name because I didn't have permission to say his name.
That's fine.
And I'll tell you, he's a Filipino comedian. You guys can figure that out by yourselves. And I asked him, why did it take so long for the Filipinos to come up in this industry? And you mentioned because nobody's interested in our lives. No one's interested in what we do. And when we come up with the things that we want to talk about, who are interested? The Filipinos. But mainstream Hollywood is not interested. They don't care about what we do. That's why we don't have a TV show that's mainly around Filipinos, because they don't think it'll be successful. They don't think it'll be to where, the shows we see right now on TV is popular. Till recently, this person got a movie coming out in August, and is directed by one of the big directors in Hollywood. And I said, why did that finally happen? And I said it to where I don't know if I offended him or made him upset, but it's the truth. I said, is it because of Asian hate? Did Asian hate finally put the Filipinos up there to where, okay, let's give them a shot. Let's see what this movie is about, and let's see how much money it can give us. Because at the end of the day, it's business, right? It's all about money. How much can we revenue off this movie? And he kind of looked at me and said, you know what? Probably is because of Asian hate. It's probably because we are now on the foreground of all these violences that's happening around the world, and instead of showing the negativity part of our culture, let's show them the positive parts of our culture and what our culture is going to do moving forward. And I kind of said, wow, okay, that's cool. I like that. But yeah, it's all about, and he mentioned he pitched this to many different people for about 10 years. For how long he's been on comedy tours, how long he's been on TV, he's pitched this for about 10 years. And finally someone said, let's go do it. Let's go run with it.
Yeah.
And, I can't wait. I mean, it's a struggle. And again, I've grown to appreciate what the actors, actresses, and directors and producers go through on a daily. And like, we get the final cut. And when I say we, I mean the audience. We get the final cut. We get to see what it is. And then at the end, we're like critics. We're like, oh, that was terrible. I wasted 2 hours of this crappy movie. But then we don't think about the hardship they put in. We don't think about the struggles that they put in there,
Right. You said it. You hit the nail right on the head. You put in 2 hours, or we, I'm part of that as well as the audience members. We give 2 hours and we go, oh, I hated that, what have you, or I loved it, or whatever. 2 hours is a pittance compared to the amount of time on average it takes to get to where you get to sit there for 2 hours. And more often than not, I think I actually was speaking to my agent about this a while back. The average is like 7 years. That's the average.
Yeah.
For a concept, from it to go, people go, why so long? Because it takes a village to get everything involved, from, production and writing, creating, building. Then now we're going to script, and then we're going to shop it. And then, and you're shopping and doing, even before you film, on average, your shopping, is just going to be bought. I mean, why do anything? If you can eliminate the whole idea of, all right, we're going to do all this and shoot it and have an end product, but nobody wants it.
Yeah.
Then what are you doing? I mean, you get to that point when you first start out, you're filming and producing and you're creating, and then going, will anybody notice or be interested?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody like this? Do they like what I do? And then that flips, and that juxtaposition is, we have to have it sold before we even make it, and not necessarily all the ink, dried and distribution completed, but we have to have people bought in that it will be to that point before we even film anything, or we're wasting tons of time and tons of money.
Yeah.
And so, that's, like you said, it's such a long process. And then you give 2 hours as an audience member, and go, oh, I hated this, or why, that's a very small investment considering what it took to get to that point. And not everything is going to be, everything that's produced, there's no way just by the timing of the world that it's going to be a hit. Everything that comes out isn't going to be a hit because we're trying to appease zillions of audience members and spectators and viewers and different thought processes. And so it's like, there's no way you're going to make something phenomenal every time.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that, because within the past 5 years, my attitude in this industry changed. And, I'm sorry for the listeners, we topics totally different down the road, but my input in this industry has totally changed. 5 years ago, if you came to me and you say, hey, did you watch, Joe Schmo Schmidt movie? And I didn't like it. I would say, oh man, that was a terrible movie. I wasted my time watching this movie. I wasted, $20 at the theater. But then if you ask me now, the same movie, I'm like, the writing, the creativity was perfect. It was just the execution. I see things in a different light. Like when I watched the movie, I just watched Doctor Strange this weekend. Good movie. Go watch it if you guys are Marvel fans. But I just watched it, and, I asked my friends, what did you think? And it was split down the middle. I watched it as a Marvel fan, following the Marvel universe, and I loved the Marvel storyline was great. But I was critiquing every little thing, and that's, that's just how it is. But I love the concept. I love the writing. I love how these Marvel writers are just putting their hard work into it. And it makes me appreciate what they put in and what they go through. And I love it. And just the things that you guys go through on a day-to-day, I appreciate all that.
I wish every person could have that kind of background or wherewithal. I wish that was possible to have that kind of really appreciation.
Yes.
But again, I also am real. I know that, audience members, human beings, spectators, they go to things to get away from their realities,
Yes.
And it's an interesting twist, because we're not of a situation where, I have to have that same respect where I go to a doctor's office or a dentist office or whatever, the grocery store, and the people that work there, and respect for what they do and the product they put out. And they're doing the same for what I put out, and everything that I do and everything that I create isn't always going to be loved and adored. And it's the same way if I go to the doctor's office, dentist's office. I'm not, why do I have to wait so long? Why do I, let's just get through this. Let's, all right, let's move on. I've got more important things to do. I'm doing this because it's part of the, yearly exam or routine or whatever, and so there's that catch-22. And whatever you're producing, whenever you're making a product for consumption, whether it be films, television, from shoes to clothing to, food to whatever, there's a process to it that a lot of us don't have that empathy of going, okay, I don't care what it took to get it here.
Yeah.
If I don't like it, I don't like it, and so be it. So it's wonderful when you have, you mentioned how you see things, differently after talking to people in the industry. It's wonderful when you have people that can empathize like that. They go, yeah, it's not everything you're going to love.
Yeah.
But there's that respect for the fact that you had that process to get that product to you.
Yeah.
And what it took. And it's insane. And people, well, why do you do this? Why do you do what you do? Well, why does anybody do what they do? Why does a person go, hey, I'll go through 7 years of undergrad and medical school, and then how many years of residency and whatever? Because you have a passion for it. You have a conviction for it. Why do you, Eric Balanik, do what you do? Because that's what you wanted to do. And great. Why do you make podcasts? Because you have a passion for it and a conviction for it, and they're awesome, And so it's funny. The thing that's really unique about this process is that for mostly unique about this process is that when I explain to people, we do all of this, and some times you're doing it where that your pay or your money is going to be delayed or come in, later. Well, how do you live like that? Well, you budget and you time everything, and then boom, it's, feast or famine. And then all of a sudden your everything's coming in at once, and that's great. But then, down the road, there's going to be dry spells because you're producing again or building to do the next thing. So that's a very difficult thing for people to understand. I don't see a check every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I see, spurts come in and contracts come in, and you take that and you nest egg it and you balance it out so that there's going to be dry time, because you're not always producing. You're not always, or if whatever you're producing is not always drawing a check, money. Yeah. It's a crazy process, and I can't fathom not doing it. Yeah. That's the part. Maybe I need to be institutionalized for that. Is that I can't fathom not doing it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate everything you actors, directors, producers, writers do. And I'm, again, 5 years ago, I would have been that guy who would have been the annoying person that's always critiquing but don't understand the backstory to it. And, now it's like even in life in general, if I see a guy walking down the street and he's like talking to himself and hitting himself on the head, I'm not going to go, that's a crazy person. I'm going to say that person has a lot of issues in life that he needs to talk to someone to control, because I'm looking at things in a different angle now. It's just, I'm not that angry person that I was 5 years ago. And I wasn't angry. It was just, I was just so sheltered with life. I just looked at everybody in a different way. And if you were talking to yourself, you were crazy. To me, you were crazy. San Francisco, we have a lot of them. If you're not on fentanyl, you're not on drugs, you're hallucinating talking to people. But then I started looking at them as they just need help. They just need to find that right direction to get them back. And I try to tell my kids that. It's like, hey Dad, there's this guy on the bus, and he's on the bus and he's always talking to himself and he's always laughing when he's looking at his phone. Oh, what bus are you on? And there's, on their way to school, they go by the VA. It stops by the VA hospital. Okay. So I tell them that's probably a war veteran that suffered some kind of PTSD. And he doesn't talk to anybody, but he talks to his phone and he sees something humorous and he's just laughing, So
that's an interesting thing. The thing that popped in my head when you were talking about that is the never ending need for empathy and for sensitivity and for understanding in what we do and what we build, in life, in work, in love, in art, all of that is that I think we've slipped. I think there is a way we could return and focus on, if you just took a second, you don't have to love everything that everybody else does. Yeah. Obviously that's ridiculous. But if you took a second just to realize, hey, people are trying their best. Not everybody's coming from the same background. Not everybody's coming from the same path. You mentioned the final, or I mean, not final, but you're getting more influence, with the Filipino comedian and being able to support and respect, the Filipino background, and now it's getting some exposure, thank God. Yeah. It takes forever. It takes so long, and it's a constant battle and journey, and yet we have to do it. We have to work that, and we have to push for that emphasis and build from that and learn. And it's crazy. We started with The Shining, and I think about all the different things that are involved with what every human being is trying to do on any given day. I mean, just getting through a given day anymore, and dealing with pandemic, and dealing with politics, and dealing with kids now. I mean, you have teenagers, I have teenagers, and the things that they see and experience and how different that is from when we were teenagers and when our parents were teenagers. And it's more and more, and there's so much.
Yeah.
It's just so much and so much to consume. And here's the crazy thing. And I'm not trying to make light of it. We think we are the consumers, and in so many ways we're being consumed ourselves.
We are. Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
We're being digested and eaten alive by what's out there. And it's a balance. We have to, as an actor, as a person that works in the medical field, as whoever you are, it's a very fine balance.
Yeah.
A very particular balance. So yeah, the whole process is, crazy. We're talking, this year, yesterday, I was like 4 different calls of speaking to one person who is going in one direction with our production, then adding another person, then having to talk to the third person in order to get to, is this person the person we want to move forward with? It's such a crazy process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to get to ground zero. I mean, it's not like we're saying, oh, we're done. I mean, this is just the very first, very finite piece of what'll probably take months into a year. And okay, if it goes all as planned, we should be able to get done with just the shooting part of it.
Wow.
By the end of the year. Wow. If it goes all as planned, we might get the filming part of it by the end of 2022, and then editing and distribution, and hope to God that you're on whatever medium by the fall of 2023.
Wow.
And that's just one production.
Jesus. I mean, it's just the hard work, man. And again, I totally appreciate the hard work that everyone's, being put in. And there's this actor, another Filipino actor who is now, him and his brothers are doing all these different movies, these different projects. But back then I looked at him as, oh, he's not a real actor. He's doing all these different roles. He's not even representing the Filipinos the way he is. And then again, I realized why he's doing that. And, I'm going to throw a shout out to Eugene Cordero, who was on Loki with you, who played Casey in Loki. Okay. When I spoke to him and I asked him, you played this role in a movie and you were a Latin actor, why? And then he said, because the Latin actor puts food on my table. The Latin actor I played. And he said, when you have, and the metaphor that he used, I loved so much, and I use this all the time. He says, when you have $5,000 in your pocket and you want to buy a used car, and then you have these cars that's under $5,000, and they're the crappiest cars in the world, and then you have the most expensive cars, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. He goes, what car are you going to get? I said, I only have a $5,000 budget. So of course it's going to be, he goes, that's how it is with us. These are the roles they give us. Hey, you're brown skin, you look Latin, we want you to play this role. I'm not going to say no. This is Eugene. I'm not going to say no, because playing this Latin character puts money and food in my pocket.
Yeah.
And after that, I totally appreciated everything. And then now when I go back and I watch these movies and I see these movies of characters, Filipino characters, even Spanish characters who are playing a different, nationality, I have more respect for them doing that, because I realize why they're doing that role, why they're playing that role, because that was the only role that was available. And it's either you take it or you don't. And if you don't eat.
That's a fine balance. There's a fine balance. That's it. It's crazy. I just had this discussion 3 days ago with my agent, and in an ideal world,
yes,
we would be cast in the things we want to try and challenge, and as actors, producers, whatever. We would, in an ideal world, we would be doing those things. But in that ideal world is very surreal as well. in the realityville, you want to be part of something and you want to be able to eat.
Yes.
And so you're taking what they're telling you you're worth.
Yeah.
And people go, well, why don't you stand up? And there's actually a discussion about that and things being noticed about that locally here just in the last few weeks. And that's a between a rock and a hard place, and I was talking to my agent about this, and I'm not going to mention the production, but it was of something that I'm always trying to push beyond, but also realize reality. I am a man with achondroplasia, with dwarfism, a little person, whatever other word you want to use, I guess. And so are you going to accept those roles?
Yeah.
And there's nothing, it's not fair to say, whoever accepts those roles is a lesser person. They're trying to eat. They're trying to pay their bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in so doing, though, they're also, like you said, Eugene Cordero, in so doing, they're doing what's right for them in that moment because that's what they're being offered. And yet they're trying to break that stereotype or that archetype or that mold, if you will, saying, I'll do this because I have to in this moment, but I'd like to step beyond that too.
Yeah.
I'd like to move out of that box too. And I think I should have the opportunity. If you don't have what it takes to conquer role, position, whatever, so be it. That's kind of I don't want to sound ridiculous, but that's the natural selection of the business. Those who are good at what they do, hopefully, are rewarded for that. Yeah. Those who aren't as great aren't, cream rises to the top, if you will, and they're not going to get that.
Yeah.
It's just life. It's not necessarily fair. It's not necessarily right, but it works out that way. And again, going back to what you said, here's what we're being offered.
Yeah.
Do we take it? Well, some do, some don't. Some say, hey, I don't have to. I get to do the other things I want to do. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. That's wonderful. And I'm pushing for that all the time. And yet some go, hey, this is what I'm getting. Yeah. So I'm going to take it so that I can get it checked so I can pay for the groceries.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a wild, infinite loop.
Yeah. I mean, someone like me, and I think I told you this, like I'm trying to dabble into the acting world since I've been speaking to a lot of you actors and producers. And it made me appreciate the things that a new actor and actress has to go through, just trying to get into character, trying to get that very first audition and nailing that first audition, trying to get a gig. And again, if someone came to me and said, hey, Eric, we want you to play, you're Filipino, you're brown skinned, but I got this role and it's for a Latin American who, lives in this part and I want you to audition for this role. I'm not going to say no. I'm very, I'm grounded with my roots, I'm Filipino 100%. But if you say, hey, Eric, we want you to play this Latin guy and this is the role he's going to be doing, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, because you're trying to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. Absolutely. If it's something that questions your integrity or your morals or your ethics to the point that it's like, no, I will not do that.
Yeah.
That's fine. There's somebody who probably will.
Yeah.
Okay, so be it. But if you're, like you said, you're getting your foot in the door. If you're somebody who's been in this business, if for all actuality, if I want to say my first official year as professionally in this business was 22 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
22 years in this business. And I'm 22 years, now in the present, 22 years later, I'm not going to take everything. Not because I'm too, ego driven and think I'm all that in a bag of chips, but I've hit a point where I'm like, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to visit that. I want to try something different. I want to move differently. We do this in every area. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Whether it be, like I said, food service or medical or whatever, as a doctor, you're not going, hey, I'm going to do the same thing I did 22 years ago.
Yeah.
No, you have that much experience. You're going to go, all right, we're going to break boundaries.
Yeah.
We're going to try a heart transplant.
Yeah.
We're going to go, you know what I mean? We're not going to sit there and worry about stitches alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's in everything we do. We always want to become better and improve. And in so doing, it can be, like you said, you're wanting to get into this and try it. Then you may try something, that I would go, hey, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah. But again, that isn't I'm better than you. That's just 22 years of experience.
You've done it longer than I have. I mean,
and that is, and I think that's hard for some people to grasp that when they're new into it, they go, why can't I have that?
Yeah.
Well, you haven't been here long enough.
Exactly.
And there is some type of, help me out here. I don't think I'm saying this correctly in my head. It's kind of paying your dues.
Yeah.
Figuratively and literally, you're paying your dues.
Yeah.
And, I think for some people, they go, well, when I got out of school, I expected 6 figures and I expected the big corner office.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's not happening, no matter what field.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't happen. I mean, if that happens, that means that your mom or dad are probably running the company.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful, but that's usually not how it happens. So as an actor, I remember some of those, and I know I remember all of it, but I'm not going to do what I did 22 years ago just because I want to go beyond that. I want to build that level and that whole,
I mean, it even goes in the work field that I'm in right now. I'm a medical assistant at, San Francisco hospital, and there's 2 of us that's been in the clinic, longer than everyone else, and then there's everyone below us. And we have this new person who just came in and said, like, hey, we have 3 different shifts. We have the early shifts, the mid-morning shift, and then we have the later shifts. And you have to spread that out according to clinical needs. So me and this other coworker of mine, we come in and we are the 8 o'clock people. So we get to work at 8 o'clock. We leave at 4:30. Then you have the 9 o'clock as the latest. And this new person comes in and is like, well, why can't I be the 8 o'clock person? And I said, well, we've been here this many years and you have to try to, I said, I'm sorry, but the only way you can get 8 o'clock is if the people ahead of you starts to either quit or they want to change their time.
Well, you got to serve your time. You got to pay your dues.
And I paid my dues when I got to this.
Right.
I paid my dues. I did the 9 o'clock shift for a long time. So
how would that work out if you've been doing that for how many years and then the new person comes in and goes, well, I'm going to do that now.
Yeah.
No, because you didn't get to do that when you were the new person. Yeah. And there's something to be said about that it's like hard to grasp for some people that you're like, how would you not think you're paying your dues?
Yeah.
How would you not think that over time, you've got to build up to that. You can't just, get the VP position.
Yeah. No way.
When you should be in the mailroom.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you work your way up. I mean, it's like,
exactly.
And I totally get this, I totally get why if I did get into some sort of acting role or any whatever, and if they said, you're playing this character, you're not going to say a word, you're going to do what you got to do, I'm going to take it because one, this is my foot in the door. Like you said, it's my way in. I'll do it. And if they tell me what to do, I'll do it. If it's morally right for me to do.
Right. You're dealing, what we're dancing on is the idea of sorry about that.
No worries.
That was a young child. We should all be proud of who we are.
Yes.
We should all be confident in ourselves. That does not guarantee us this entitlement complex that some people have. That's the difference.
Yeah.
We can all be confident. We can all be proud. We can all say, hey, I'm great at what I do, and I'm going to show you that. Yet that doesn't allow, that entitlement of, well, I deserve this, and you're going to give it to me.
Yeah.
Because you think you're great, which we all should do, and be proud and confident in our bodies and in our minds and souls, which is fantastic, doesn't mean that you just get that, like I said, to use that analogy again, that big corner office and the VP position.
Oh, you don't. Yeah. You work your way up for that.
You got to get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
You got to get your feet in the mud. And that's in everything we do. And so that's the other part of it that's always a battle, is that every new person that comes into the industry, no matter what industry it is, no matter, the entertainment world, the medical world, the legal world, serving your people, your community world, whatever it is, you start at the bottom. You should.
Yep, you have to.
Because you have to learn that. Okay? As over time you get better in what you do, and then you get to be the person who they trust to try those upper echelon things in upper levels, because you've served your time and learned, and you're working and building and becoming better.
Yeah.
Okay.
You used the analogy of a surgeon earlier. It's like if you were a patient and this surgeon that you're seeing had 3 surgeries under his belt, but then the main surgeon had 200. Who would you trust?
Exactly. Just by numbers and experience and time. Exactly. That's a great analogy. Yeah. Yep. Thank you. That's exactly it. Okay. If you got somebody who just said, I stitched up this arm, I'm good. Or, and so I think I can do this, kidney transplant. Yeah. I don't know. This person's done like 70 of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we try that one? Not that they may not be flawless, but just by odds, just by numbers, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And so when you see people who go, well, I think I should be playing the lead role. Okay. You'll get your time. You'll get your dues. Be the supporting role, or be that person who's got 1 or 2 lines, and then it'll build up and experience with time.
Yeah, exactly.
And in my field, just like in any other field, there are people who have education and knowledge by time.
Yeah.
And then there are people who have trained and then build on that experience. But you have so many people who go, well, I don't have any formal training. I'm very new to this, and I think I'll be playing the lead in the big, $50 million budgeted blockbuster.
Yeah. Yeah. No. The only way you can play the lead in your own movie as a young actor is to create your own movie.
Create your own movie.
That's the only way.
And here's the crazy thing about that. You could do all of that, create your own movie, be the young, novice, the ingenue, what other title you want to put to it, and nobody may see it because you're very young.
Yeah.
You're very new. First time doing this, and you think you're phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we want you to think you're phenomenal, but nobody else does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the experience. That's the whole vetting process in any area of what you do. You got to give your time.
I was listening to this podcast.
You're going to get better, hopefully.
I was listening to this podcast, and I'm not going to mention the name, but it was a podcast, and this person was talking about how they try to get into Hollywood, how they try to put their foot into Hollywood. So he created all these little short films of himself, like, movies that he tried to pitch to directors and producers. And then later on, like he says a couple years later, he sees his short films on TV or in movies. And he's like, that's my stuff. So what he did wrong was he was pitching these shows without legal, factors behind them. So these people would just steal his routine or steal his stuff. And it made him learn that you can't trust people in Hollywood just because, he wants to be that main frontline actor. But if he's pitching a movie, he needs to be careful on who he's pitching it to, and he needs to get all that legal facts behind him, because Hollywood would just steal his stuff. And he did. He said he pitched like 10 and they used 7 of them. And, it wasn't the full thing, but the concept that he wanted to use, they were using it. He was like, that's my
Unfortunately,
stuff.
That happens more often than we want to admit.
Yes.
I've had that happen myself, where I went, oh my God, I put that out there and I didn't have the protections that it needed in order to keep it from being borrowed, stolen, whatever term you want to use.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was somebody else's wonderful idea. And I'm like, great, I'm so glad I thought of that for them. And it happens more than anybody wants to admit. It's It's unfortunately part of the business.
It is. I mean, it is.
We hear the stories of, and this will seem like a reach, but we hear the stories of how once you get to know the truth behind history and whatever, and that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb.
Yeah.
And then you find out that Thomas Edison probably didn't invent the light bulb. Thomas Edison had the money to pay for the patent of the light bulb.
Yeah.
Now it's his.
That's exactly what happens.
If you don't mind, sir, can we, I don't want to, we've got a few minutes, but I wanted to conclude our show. I got a couple of things I've got to address that I didn't know about until right this minute. But I think that we've hit we've covered our bases on this.
Yes.
It's a crazy world, and
it is.
In entertainment and in life, and from The Shining to
Hollywood. Yeah. And you know what? I'm talking to you, and I appreciate speaking to you because I'm getting your feedback on everything. And for me, who is aspiring to try to get in this business and to hear your ends of the stuff, it's helping me out a lot and what I need to do and to try to be successful. So thank you for being there. Thank you. And
I'm experienced. What I love about this whole process, Eric, is that we cover things that you really don't. A lot of people don't realize or think about. But also, for me, I'm going, oh yeah, that's it's, you don't ever think about these things. It's just kind of like breathing and walking, where you take them for granted and you think it just happens. And even as an industry person, and it's in every field, and in every shape and form. I love that we talk about your background and being, of Filipino descent, and that appreciation and respect. And I love that we talk about, being a little person, and in life and in performance and all of it. I mean, there's just so many different angles from this that are so awesome to address each week. This is show 9. We have show 10 coming up, and we had talked about, we're going to have a guest on.
Okay, nice.
I have addressed that with him, and we were hoping to have show 10 done, but life happens.
Yes.
And so we hit show 10 next week.
Yes.
I'm going to get him on. I'm not going to reveal him yet.
Nice.
Because I want to make sure he's locked. But yeah, he's an amazing part of this industry, and just learned so much from him. And he's younger than me, and I love how mature he is, and he's kind of an old soul when it comes to this industry and to the world of entertainment and film and television. And he's got such a great outlook, and he's not an ego. He's really good, and he's not an ego. He's not a head trip. He's bent in, it's kind of like, and not to get weird or anything, but like a reed, where it can bend so far before it snaps, and he's bent and he's put forth his best and taken his punches. And I won't say anything more. I'll let him speak for himself next week. Hopefully he'll be a part of that.
Nice.
But anyway, this has been an awesome experience because we went from the Shining Hotel to where we are right now. And I think everybody's head is like the Shining Hotel.
But it's good. It's good feedback. It's good to hear, your ends as you're a part of the story. But thank you everyone for listening. Thank you guys for watching. Watch us on YouTube. We're available on YouTube. Yes. The Diary of the Little Man's Podcast on YouTube. And again, we're available on Instagram, The Diary of the Little Man's Podcast. If you guys have questions or you want to come up with topics, please email us at thediaryofthelittlemanspodcast@gmail.com. You can follow Aaron Bielner on his Instagram page, and you can follow me on my Instagram page. Yes.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
Can we make that a challenge? For part of the show next week? Let's have a viewer or anybody throw something out there you want to talk about, and that's what's going to be the topic. We'll, of course, vet it. I mean, it can't be anything too wild and crazy because we have all ages of listeners. But give us a topic. Give us something that you want to talk about or want us to approach and address, and we'll do it. Let's go.
Please. Yes.
That's the challenge.
Help us out here. We come up with content that we think is interesting. But if you think there's something that you want to ask, address, or something, and like Aaron said, kind of keep it G-rated, and
we can talk about most anything. We'll G-rate it because, of course, we don't want to get too wild and hairy. So,
and I don't know how Aaron feels about politics, but I try not to veer into politics when it comes to, with what's going on in we all know what's going on right now, but
politics. Yeah.
So we'll see, but send us a message, email us again at thediaryofthelittlemanspodcast@gmail.com. But until next week, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. We are the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast.
Adios, everyone.
You've been listening to the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast.